Dr. Jazz.
Now, where
Dr.
where
Jazz.
are you? You in New York City?
No, I'm in Maribor, Slovenia. You played here
Ah,
actually like
that's right.
7 years ago on a Sunday with
Oh,
Steve Weingart, that protocol, the three version with Andy
protocol.
Timmons and Ernest. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
We didn't
beautiful.
play there with Protocol 4.
No, no, no.
Interesting.
Just
Yeah. Okay.
three. Also in Ljubljana, I don't think you came with three or four or five actually. So I think the
Oh,
last time. So we have to bring you back actually.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the burning group. Simon, I wanted to start this talk with protocol actually, and I have you on so many albums, obviously all the protocol stuff, including the first one, and
Yeah.
how when I listen to the band, it's like the evolution is incredible, like composition wise from your point of view and musically, obviously. And I wanted first to start this talk with about your connection with Ernest Tips, because when I
Yeah.
listen to you two guys, it's incredible, and I saw you live. It's there is something special there, and you played with the greats in the history of the bass, but still, like, what's there with Ernest that somehow really makes it sound effortless and easy?
Yeah. Well, that was kind of from day one. The first time, well, apparently we did do a gig together, a casual gig with David Garfield and a couple of other people, but I'd forgotten about that. So when I was putting together the recording sessions for Protocol 2, which was supposed to be a jam album, right?
Oh wow.
The bass player who had been playing with Protocol was Melvin Lee Davis, and so he was my first call because he was the guy that was playing. But the requirement is those that play on the album have to be available for the tour.
Sure.
I have very much rock group sensibility when it comes to that, or rock group
Makes
approach,
sense. I mean, yeah.
I'm kind of more of a band, want more of a band vibe. Paul McCartney's words, band vibe. um, so Melvin was available, but he had just got the gig of being Shaka Khan's MD and was going to be out on the road. So I said, yeah, I can't do that, So I spoke to Steve Weingart and he said, why don't you give Ernest Tibbs a call? And I went, Ernest Tibbs, yeah, I know the name. And apparently I had called him to do some gigs before, but he wasn't available. So yeah, it's just kind of happened, and we started recording, and the first song that we played was a song called Moments of Fortune. And the reason I chose that one was, first of all, it's the simplest song on the record. It's a straightforward rock song, but it's instrumental. But the other thing was I really wanted to see how Ernest would play just straight eights, because it's a very British thing, that groove. It's a bit like The Pump that I wrote with Tony Hyman for back,
Jeff.
and in the various times that we rehearsed with Jeff and recorded, we had one day we had John Paul Jones come down from Led Zeppelin, and I got to tell you, that was the best it ever felt.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because he just knows how to play a straight eight rock bass.
Sensibility. Yeah.
Mo Foster, who ended up playing on the master recording and touring with the band, he also knows how to do that. It's just a very British groove, I think, I find that a lot of musicians don't really know how to give the eighth note the right value and the right lope. It's so simple. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, but not. Yeah.
You got to have that vibe. And so I thought, I want to find out. I knew Ernest can play all the tricky stuff, right? That's not a problem. But it's the simple stuff that people find hard, you know? So that's why I started with that song. It was perfect from the moment I counted in. He just understood the groove. And I've always been, even though my projects are more jazzy and more fusiony and a little bit proggy, uh, from the bass point of view, I always want it fairly simple,
Mm.
you know, because somebody in the band has to be play more simply,
Yeah.
you know. If you look at the Mahavishnu Orchestra, the guy that really kind of glued it together was Rick Laird.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he,
Yeah.
he doesn't get the kind of kudos that, Billy got, or Jan Hammer, or even Jerry, and of course John. And so people kind of, I don't know, they kind of forget about him. But listen carefully to how Rick was playing, and it was beautiful. And
Yeah.
I think I've spoken to Billy about this. I think Bill would agree with me that was the right bass player to have for a band that's playing such complex music. And he was fine with all the complex stuff, but he just his approach to playing was a bass player,
Yeah.
play upright. I saw him play with the Buddy Rich band once.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Oh,
oh yeah. So he had that sensibility, and so I've always wanted that kind of sensibility. That's why I've had Anthony Jackson in the band. Melvin Lee Davis is another bass player of that ilk, Um, Jimmy Earl, you
mm.
know, beautiful groove player.
Yeah.
Those, that's when I feel really comfortable. So that's the thing. And with Ernest, I mean, I don't have to say a thing. We just play, and
Yeah.
I think it gives the band that extra groove aspect. That I think people look at it and think, wow, this music's kind of complex, but it feels good. And people are like, because there is a groove between Ernest and myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Ernest is absolutely fantastic. Love him to death. And yeah, great.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because when I listen to you guys, he's there. It's not fancy
Yeah,
stuff like you said, but it's the
exactly.
groove is there, like, and it's so important. Yeah.
Groove's there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Holding that bottom end down. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you assembled that band, because how do you see in your eyes like your development as a band leader actually from, let's say, Protocol #2, I guess, which was a band feature then, and until now? Did you immediately feel comfortable in band leading, or how do you see that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I actually, the first band I put together was in 1990.
Already? Okay.
Yeah. So the first solo album, which was an EP, it was just called Protocol.
But
I
you did
called
that yourself, right? I mean, that one.
I played all the
Yeah. Yeah.
instruments on it. Yeah. And the reason was they were actually a bunch of demos that I was taking around record companies in London and New York City, and they didn't know what to do with it.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't get signed. So I thought I had just well, I installed a studio in 1986. So for my production stuff, I thought I've got the studio. Why don't I just make I'd only really had 5 songs that I wanted to that were ready. Why don't I just put this together like the demos? Because I played it to a few people and they were loving it, and they
Yeah,
said, "Is
sure.
that a guitar?" I said, "No, it's not a guitar. I can't play guitar." I said, "It's a keyboard that I've made and kind of manipulated, put it through an amplifier, distorted the amp, and play a certain way. It sounds a little bit like a guitar. It fooled a few,
Mm.
not many guitar players, but it did fool a few people. Um, so I think the first show we ever did, was." It was 1990, and it was at the Montreal Jazz Festival. Was it? Yes, Montreal Jazz Festival. And it was Tony Hymas, Ray Russell, and Anthony Jackson. That was
Oh, man.
the first.
Okay.
Then in 1992, I continued with that band, except without Tony. I decided to have all the keyboards, my playing on a sequencer.
Mm.
So everything was done to a sequencer, which in 1992
It's heavier.
Way
Yeah, yeah.
Very early, especially for that kind of music. And we added a horn player, Tony Roberts,
Mm.
tenor and soprano. So, and that is that's recorded. That's the album called Force Majeure. And then finally, this guy from Germany kept calling me about a record deal, Joachim Becker, for a record company called uh, Food for Thought. No, not Food. That was the other one. Oh God, what was it called?
Have to check off. We
Alex
can
Lipstick.
lipstick. Okay.
Lipstick, Alex Music. And he said, we really want to sign you, blah, 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 blah. And I went, okay. And I was on tour in 1994 with Los Lobotomies, and we were going to Cologne. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to rent a car and I'll just drive there rather than the bus and have a breakfast meeting with this guy, you know? And we did the deal over breakfast,
Oh,
literally.
wow.
And so in 1995, I kind of recorded my first full studio album called Symbiosis.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's 95.
And
Yeah.
then I formed the first band, partially out of the people that played on that album, but some new players for the Symbiosis tour in 1997 in Europe with Andy Timmons, Jeff Babco, Jimmy O, and Wendell Brooks on horn. So, and that was really the start of the proper touring band.
Mm. Yeah. Also, yeah, Andy stayed for quite a long time in that band, no? I
Oh
mean, like
yeah, I mean
with you.
at that time, you know, I mean Andy still is. He's just, you know, he's literally one of my favorite guitar players of all. I mean, he's amazing. And because why it works with Andy is he understands jazz. He understands changes. He can play all the scale. He knows exactly what to do. But he's basically a rock
Rock.
blues
Yeah.
guitar.
Yeah.
That's where he came from. And that's what he loves to play. So he has the sound, which is, I grew up with rock guitarists. That's what I need. That's what makes Protocol a different type of fusion band to any other,
Mm.
because the guitar is much more of a rock and roll instrument in the band. So, you know,
Yeah.
Andy's just perfect, you know. So we do stuff that's a little more on the rock side. We do also stuff that gets a little more jazzy and more complex with some of the odd time meters, you know, and time signatures. So, but Andy, yeah, I mean, you know, he's just amazing, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. Jeff Babco was recommended to me by Mitch Foreman, who was the guy that played on the record,
Yeah, Mitch.
and he couldn't do it because he was having a baby. So he recommended this young guy called Jeff Babco, and he turned up at my house. I think he was 25 years old, and I thought, how can this kid play jazz? What does he know? Because I didn't really understand how I'd only really just moved to the States. I didn't really understand how how many schools taught jazz and how much it was ingrained into the system here.
Mm.
I was used to being in England where there's pretty much no jazz taught, you know? So,
Yeah.
but I made him a cup of tea and we just were talking in my kitchen, and it was funny. As we were talking, in my head, he was visibly getting older. And he started looking a bit like Gil Evans. And I was like, wow, for a young cat, this guy's got old shoulders on him. It was interesting. Sorry, hang on, stupid stuff coming in. His record collection that I saw in the 90s was so similar to my record collection in the 70s.
Mm.
We had the same records. It was
Which were they actually? Also yours?
Oh,
I mean, like your jazz background. You know, you mentioned Buddy Rich before, and you know, there's
oh
Tony
yeah,
Williams, I guess, but
yeah. It was more fusiony. So it would have
okay,
been Headhunters, Herbie
okay,
Hancock. It would have been. I think he had a couple of Mahavishnu records. Um, I mean, a whole bunch of stuff, very varied too. You know, but I just reckon. Oh yeah, I had this record. Oh yeah, that one. Dreams.
yeah,
You know, all these just wonderful, wonderful records. You know. Plus a lot of jazz records, straight ahead jazz, because that's what he actually played and plays very well.
yeah.
Uh, So that was it. And Jimmy O, who I played with quite a few times, I thought he's going to be great for this band. And that was the first band that went out. We did like, I don't know, 30 shows or something.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah. And then I had a change. Jimmy couldn't make it, so I got Jerry Watts in, who I saw the other night at the Steve Gadd show, actually, for the first time in many years. And he's great too, you know. Um, and then I kind of the next project was actually I was kind of getting bored with the fusion thing. So I wanted to do a straight ahead record. I'd never actually done one as a solo artist, you know. So I got together with Jeff and we started writing material, all original material, and made an album called Vantage Point
Yeah.
with Dave Carpenter on bass,
Well, he was amazing. Yeah, Dave, man.
yeah, Walt Fowler on
Yeah.
trumpet, Brandon Fields on horns. And we recorded it in my home studio in my house because by that time my house was just a studio. I just happened to live there, you know. And I had a piano there and everything, and it was great. It was lovely. We did a short tour of Europe with that band. I mean, you know, it wasn't as successful because I think people thought, oh yeah, I'm not really sure I want to go and see bebop, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was very funny. We did the Modern Drummer Festival in 2008, I think, and I decided to do it with Vantage Point. And so the audience is waiting, and now it's my turn. So they haven't seen the drum kit. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. 2008 was with the was the fusion band. I think it must have been, oh God, when was it? 2000, 99,
Mm,
2000,
yeah.
2001, maybe. And the and then the curtains opened and everybody went,
Like
oh,
18-inch bass drum or
there's
something.
a tiny little drum kit on stage. And they were actually disappointed. They went, huh? And they saw a piano and no guitar amps, just one little bass amp. And they went, what the hell's going on? You know? And then we come out and Dave, you know, has his bass, and Walt and Brandon go up to the mics with their horns, and you know, and we start. And I think it confused them, but I think they loved it. I mean, you know, it was fine. But yeah, I could tell by the ticket sales in Europe at certain places which we had played before, it was really quite different. So
Mm,
yeah, that's funny. That it was a bit of a shame, but we had a blast, you
yeah.
know. And then I took a break. I was so busy with Toto
Yeah, that's why
um
you waited, yeah, until what, 2012 or 13, right? For the, yeah,
to 2013. Yeah,
13,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Also, I wasn't happy with any of the material I was writing. I guess I was kind of a bit done with that type of writing, you know. I call it instrumental rock actually, but it's more fusiony. So when we came to putting this jam album together, of course, they said, "Well, have you got any music?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't really, no, I'm not really mad about it." And they said, "No, we'll just send it. Send us some demos. We'll take a listen." So I sent it to Andy and I sent it to Steve. And they called back and they said, "What are you talking about? This is fantastic." You know, I mean, listen, we can do some rearranging in the studio, but basically these are great songs, you know. And I had a couple of absolutely complete songs, Moments of Ford. Well, no, even Andy and I collaborated on that one, but I had the basic song, and there's a song called Gemini, which is
Hmm.
basically all my composition. Oh, another one. Wildfire. That's another one of my compositions. But what I did was I said, look, let's just kind of we'll co-write some stuff, and then I had to start finding all the files, the computer files of the demos.
To make the sheet music, yeah.
Oh man, while we were in the studio, I said, no, I know it's somewhere here. Let me look at this Logic computer and Pro Tools computer, and because I had, you know, two separate systems, and it was a beautiful album. It worked out
Yeah.
amazingly, and that was the start of, you know, the 2010 era of Protocol, which is still
Protocol.
going.
Yeah. How do you write music, actually? I mean, I listened to Protocol 5 today, and you know, it starts with the Jagannath, this funk, and then you go into these two tunes of kind of 3/4 6/8 ish, however you wanna 6/4,
Yeah,
and then that, if I counted correctly, I don't know, that 19, I think it's 17 or 19 tune, well,
19,
19, yeah, like, and there, you know, it's like movies, or you know, the first track like unisono lines, then it goes into the groove, and somewhere else happens. Like, how do you usually compose? What's your process when composing?
Um, well, I don't actually play another instrument aside from the drums, but I own keyboards. And by owning keyboards means I can push a few keys down. But I would not say I am a piano player at all. But I write on keyboards. So all the harmony and everything is all keyboards. My guitar line is the keyboard. Bass, of course, is keyboard. So it's all keyboard based. But we had COVID. And I had written some stuff before that, but I hadn't really got into proper writing. COVID kind of helped that. Said, right, I think you need to write some music. So I don't remember exactly. I think Nyanga was one of the first tunes I wrote.
That's a beautiful one.
That came together actually quite quickly. I think that was like a one-day job, with some updates here and there. I did a demo of it in the rental house I was in because my place burnt down, so it was being rebuilt.
Oh shit, man.
And then I remember Unde Viginti. So most of these songs start from a melody.
Really? Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I never write a song from the drum kit. I don't have any. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah.
Now I might have a couple of rhythms that, oh, that's a good groove. Let me just put the iPhone on and do that. But you know what? 9 times out of 10, I never use them because they just don't, because the music kind of comes first. Unde Viginti, I was making breakfast and I just had this melody going around in my head. I didn't know what time it was in. And it kept going. I went, hang on a minute. I think this might be good. I switched my eggs off, pulled up the toast, ran into the studio, switched everything on while singing it, because you know how easy it is to forget.
Oh, man, yeah.
I just got a quick tempo in just all four, and I picked out the notes, and I just played it, kind of just with a click. So it would just go totally off, right? But at least it gave me something.
Yeah.
And the click would go, it's so funny. And that was the A section of that tune. And I had to work it out.
Yeah, the subdivisions, and
that's 19. So I put 19, 16 in because it's semiquavers or 16th notes. And it scanned, and then I just quantized it to tighten it up a little bit, and that's what I started with.
Wow.
Then my next move, I remember this very clearly. My next move was the bass line, the slight counterpoint.
Counterpoint is yeah.
So I actually, unless I start from a chord sequence, which sometimes I do, I might just have 2 chords, I might have a 4-chord sequence. I might just start there. But immediately there's a melody that will come around that, because writing from just chord sequences, you're a bit what's the word, committed
okay
to these chords, and now you're just writing a melody on top of chords, which is a bit of a cop-out. It's like, because at some point, unless you're really good at doing that, at some point, the melody really doesn't want to do that. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So I prefer to go melody, bass line. So I've got some sort of groove with bass, but also some counterpoint. And then I start filling in the harmony.
Yeah.
So I take very carefully fill the harmony in, not too many notes. Just and then just to get the basic structure. And then that usually leads me into the next section. And if you know Unde Viginti, it transfers to 5, because
it's interesting, right? Like 19 and 5, it's very close actually. So in a way, it misses one 16th note, but okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a very natural. It just slips in really nicely. The last part of the melody is actually a 5/4 bar. So instead of changing like right on the bar line, I change a little before, so the phrase leads in to the next section much more comfortably, and that's very important. That's arranging. That's but it's a complex melody, it's got to somehow kind of even out. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough listen, you know. It's just my natural way of doing it. And that's it. And then once I've got my basic form, then I might think, how am I going to play this? And then I loop it and I just go in with a click and I go and I start putting together some sort of groove. And then that immediately tells me, oh, this is not quite the right tempo.
Yeah.
So a sequencer will play anything perfectly at any tempo. The human doesn't, you know, and this is why often when I get sessions to do, sometimes I think this is just the wrong tempo for this song. It needs to be like 2 clicks quicker or 3 clicks slower. And I can tell because as I'm playing, I'm all over the place with the click.
Natural, yeah.
All right. And I'll stick with it for a while and I go, no, you know, no matter what I do, this is just not the right tempo for this song. So, and then I go back to the artist and I say, all these other tracks that I've got, are these final or are you going to replace them? And hopefully they say, oh, no, they're just rough guys. We're going to replace them. And I say, good, because I'm changing the tempo. I hope you don't mind. Oh, okay. And of course they hear it and they go, oh,
Sure.
yeah, great, you know, because real instruments, they're different, you know. So that's one of the early things I do. As soon as I sit down at a kit and play it like I'm playing somebody else's music at that stage, actually, it's like I'm doing a session and I go, wow, yeah, this feels good, pretty good, you know, or I think it needs to be a little slower or
Yeah,
something like that.
it's
I
true.
don't
Yeah.
actually remember. I think on Diviginti, funnily enough, I think it was actually pretty spot on because I was just singing the melody and it's a melody first. So you would probably understand this more maybe than some other people. Eastern European music, Bulgarian music is purely based on that melody.
Yeah.
When the melody finishes, there's a bar line.
Yeah.
And that's why it's in 33. A lot of Bulgarian music is in 9.
Yeah. Or Macedonia 7 or whatever. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I found most tracks are in 9. Everything I listen to, all these Bulgarian albums that I used to have, which a Bulgarian promoter gave to me, and he used to send them to me. It was great. And I went, wow, check this out. And all folk music, you know, but beautiful, you know. So so it's a really melody based. But for my simplistic way of explaining it, it's a melody based music, which then kind of works down from there.
Interesting.
You know, rhythms and you know. So yeah, that was it. And then there was a few other tunes that started coming. I mean, some didn't come until late, you know, like a year later when I'd moved into the house, got my studio together, and then I had a few songs, and then I had the luxury of going, right now, I'm starting to get an album here. What do I need? What type of music do I need? And that's when Jagannath came up. I said, we need a fast up-tempo, you know, and I used a lot of Indian lines in it. It was really came stolen from Indian, you know, some Mahavishnu stuff, some just plain, you know, like Shakti.
Yeah.
You know, love all that music, you know. But there was one tune that I'd written in Tokyo when I was on tour with Hiromi, and this would be back in 2016. Yeah, it would have been way back in 2016. So this is way before Protocol 5. I didn't know what to do with it. I got an acoustic guitar sound, and I just came up with this kind of very Pat Metheny type thing, all acoustic. And I had, you know, like a couple of sections of it, which I really loved, but I just didn't know what to do with it because how am I going to incorporate like a acoustic guitar tune into Protocol, you know? And so the guitarist, Alex Sill, he is a huge Metheny fan and a huge Lyle Mays fan. And the way he plays, harmonically, he has that. And I went, so I invited him and Jacob, who's my horn player, during COVID, by the way, for dinner. I played him it. I said, I want you to hear something. I said, this is something I wrote actually a while ago, and I really love it. but it's kind of a little outside my range in terms of where to put it. I want you to listen to it and tell me if you think it's rubbish or if you like it. And I played him it and he said, "Oh man, this is great. Send it to me." Right. And that's what happened. Then we went backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And there was a lot of toing and froing. And then suddenly when he sent it back to me, I knew exactly what the main chorus was going to be. Just a bit where you go ba 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 da 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 ba da, right? And that was The Long Road Home. And everybody really contributed to that. And then I thought, okay, we need a piano solo. And so originally the piano solo was over a groove. And I said to Mark, yeah, I want to, this is now kind of a co-written thing. So, have a think about it. And then he came up with this idea of how about I do an unaccompanied solo, but it's a composed piece. I went, let me hear it. And I heard it. I went, that's fucking great.
No, he's amazing.
Yeah. So it really turned that tune into, it started off at about 3 or 4 minutes. Then it went to 6 and then 9 minutes. And eventually ended up at 11 minutes. I thought, why not? Yeah. Why don't we have a song, a piece of music that's like a suite, And I think I called it The Suite, actually, until we had a proper name. People love that tune. They really do.
A story,
yeah. So that really kind of made that album was like, okay. And then I think I needed one more tune. And I was kind of written out. No, that's rubbish. No, that's rubbish. I made a couple of demos and I sent them to Alex. He said, "Nah, it's okay." Just that's what happens. I just kind of run out of ideas, And I stumbled on an old demo of a tune that Jeff Beck and I had written for another project with Bill Schnee, and it was in 9. It was in 9 actually, 9/4. And I went, why is this in 9? It doesn't need to be in 9. It actually worked great in 4, straight funk tune. Why don't we do that? So then I began editing, taking 9/4 bars, putting it in 4, then moving notes around and changing the melody, and and that's the song called When the Cat's Away.
When the Cat's Away, yeah.
That was one of the last things written. Dark Star was also one of the last things written. And again, that came from, I was like, So I discovered that Arturia had introduced the Fairlight CMI. I used to program a Fairlight back in the early 80s. So it was one of my favorite machines, And I went, wow. So I was going through some of the sounds, just trying to remember, and if they sounded anything like the real thing. And they some were very close. And I stumbled on this weird sound. And so I started just playing fifths.
Yeah.
Just a tone apart. Oh, that's cool. I went, well, actually, how if I just put that onto Rhodes? And I went, and then I just put that down, and the melody came straight away. It's
funny, right? The process of writing.
Opposing gods,
Yeah. Now, are you still writing new music for Protocol? I mean, when you toured now, I saw you toured this year. Like, do you introduce every now and then also a new tune, or?
Not new tunes. What we do is I reintroduce some of the older songs.
Oh, okay.
Just to change up the set list a little bit, reintroduce those, but no, I haven't even really started to write. I just haven't, really haven't had any time producing other artists and concentrating on other stuff. And it takes me a while. It just takes me longer because otherwise the album will just end up sounding like Protocol 5. I need to get away and have lots of new influences. And then I get a spark for like, ooh, okay, then I'll start writing again.
Do you still want to pursue also like going into more jazzy stuff one day, like what you did with Jeff?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really not sure what to do next, What I decided to do was to release my first vinyl myself, self produced, as opposed to a licensing company doing it, which happened before. And so I remastered Protocol 5 with Richard Dodd, who we used to do sessions together in London in the 70s. So, he understands vinyl very well. And he mastered it beautifully. It was like, wow, this sounds amazing. And then the album, wow, came out beautifully. 180 gram virgin vinyl. But it's an expensive thing to do. And the other thing is, I don't really know how many I'm going to sell. You see, so I think the first 500 sold pretty quickly, and now I did another 500, but I'm not sure they're selling that quickly now. So there's obviously a limited market.
Yeah, sure, for vinyl nowadays still.
Yeah, there is a market. It's great, but
Yeah.
Obviously it's limited, and I have to really figure out the figures to see whether it's worth doing, because otherwise I'll never recoup.
Yeah. And bringing them on the road, it's heavy. I mean, that's like 100 LPs. It's like,
well,
a lot of
that's
kilos.
the problem, because we have a truck for all our equipment.
Okay.
I tour that stuff, rock and roll style. But the problem is we haven't had many shows. We weren't able. I have a new promoter in Europe, and for whatever reason, he just could not book a decent tour this year. So we're not going to do any more this year. We're going to wait till next year and hopefully have a really good like 1 month tour out in Europe, and then a whole bunch in the States. We just got back from Japan. Japan is great, but you can only do just a few dates there, so really Protocol 5, due to COVID as well, was never able. I was never able to really promote it on tour, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah,
because that's a lot of lost sales, and especially with vinyl, that would be great. So, but we'll see. It's all kind of it's a bit of an experiment now.
Yeah, I think after COVID, like it's changed quite a lot in Europe. Like regarding dates and booking. I mean, I did like a 3-week tour last year.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put one together this fall, and it's so heavy just to get gigs. Like it's.
Well, there's a couple of things. Well, not only is it difficult to get the gigs, the costs have gone sky high.
Yeah, tickets and everything. Yeah.
Thanks to Senor Putin, his madness. Fuel is expensive, traveling is expensive, everything is expensive. Van hire, truck hire, gas for the truck, gas for the van, hotels. I mean, they've gone up. So the problem is the fees haven't gone up.
That's true. Yep.
So, and I'm tired of going out and losing money.
Sure.
Or paying for it, basically, which is what I would have to do. I'm too old for that, and I don't see why I should have to do that. That we should be able to command a decent fee. So what that's happening, we're asking a fee that works financially for the tour, but the problem is it doesn't work with some of the shows that the promoters that we don't know how many tickets we're going to sell, or the price of the tickets, because if you price the tickets too high, then they won't sell. But as all these pop bands and R&B bands and all these pop, Taylor Swift, I mean, they're charging, the Stones, they're charging, I mean, horrendous amount of tickets.
Yeah.
I think it's just crazy. So it means that the bottom of the ladder, people like myself, upcoming artists or whatever, it's very tough because we can't afford to tour.
You're talking that, that's the scary part, that you are saying that.
I think we're all finding it difficult. We really are, And of course, cost of living over here has really gone up, especially in California. So you've got to pay the musicians a salary that they can live off, I mean, it's just crazy. So I think that's one of the issues that's happening after COVID, that was really messed everything up, but there were some good things too that came out of it as well.
Yeah.
As with everything,
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping by next year things might just settle down, or we'll see.
Yeah. Simon, not to take too much of your time, I just wanted to ask you, You mentioned the Pump and the album There and Back, and
Yeah.
I listened to that today. Like, what was your story with Jeff actually? And I know you played with Jack Bruce, and then you connected with Tony Hymas, obviously. So and playing with Jeff and that album especially, I probably answered it many times, but still, for me as a guitarist, it's one of the
Yeah.
albums
Yeah.
I love to listen to. And
Yeah.
what's the story behind that one and playing with that group?
1978 was the last album that I recorded with Jack. But at that time, his life was, wasn't going too well. He was going through a divorce, and he also got dropped by the record company. When we did the record, he delivered it, and they didn't release it, and they dropped him. So that was kind of the end of the Jack Bruce band, really. I was doing, various other things, and then I got a call from Max Middleton saying, "Would you like to come out and have a play with Jeff? He's looking for a new band." I said, "Absolutely." So he also called John Giblin, and so we drove out to I drove out to where Jeff lived, down in Sussex, and we all met him, and I think I brought a little kit with me, and we set up, and we just started playing. Max, John, myself, and Jeff, and I got on great with Jeff, and but John didn't quite hit it off with him, so I was asked back, and John wasn't. And then all of a sudden, Jeff was eager to get into the studio. Jan Hammer had some spare time, so he flew over, and they called me to record. What was interesting, because I was doing a lot of sessions at that time.
Yeah.
I knew all the studios and all the engineers and stuff, and they asked me, the manager said, "Well, look, where do you recommend, and who do you recommend to engineer?" And I said, because I think they were just looking for some new ideas. I said, "Well, I would go to, I think the best studio is Rock and Roll Studios Ramport, which is Pete Townsend's studio, because it's private. You block book it. You don't have any interference from other studios, and there's no time issue. There's not a jingle in the morning. It's yours when you walk in." So I said, "I think that's a great studio." And I would get John Punter, who was an Air Studios engineer. And he was my favorite engineer at the time. So that's how we started recording. Jan came over. We recorded 5 or 6 tunes.
Jan was amazing, right?
Yeah, and no bass player, just the 3 of us. Jan actually played like Moog bass on a couple of things, or just Rhodes, So we recorded those tracks. I was like in heaven. It was like, wow, Jan and Jeff, this is great, And it went well. And luckily, I still have those recordings because I had it on my computer. So I do have those. They were, well, not all of them were finished because Jeff decided he only wanted to do 3 of those songs. So that was the end of that. And then all of a sudden, there was this call from the manager that said, "Listen, can you get down to Jeff's? Stanley Clark's coming over. We're putting something together for Japan in November or whatever it was, October, I think it was." Stanley would like to meet you and hear you play. So, because obviously what had happened, Jeff had spoken to Stanley, and Jeff said, "Yeah, I've got this young drummer, he's great, blah, blah, blah." And Stanley said, "Yeah, well, I've got this young drummer and he's great." Do you know what I mean? It was one of those. So probably, I'm guessing now. So I drive down there, and I have my whole Octopus kit. By now we've already established that, So I set it all up, and I meet Stanley, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, it's Stanley," and it was quite amazing because before we started playing, he had this stool, quite a high stool, and he put it right next to the drum kit with his kind of back facing me, but to the side. So it immediately was drums and bass, the rhythm section. And he'd never even heard me play, but he was already establishing that kind of rapport. And I thought that was really cool. And he said, "Right, Jeff, what do you want to play?" well, let's play School Days. And Stanley goes, you know School Days? I said, yep, I know School Days. And off we go. We play. I can't remember if that really was the first song, but it seemed like it would have been because Stanley would have had to have learned the other tunes, you know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, you know. So anyway, we played it, and right at the end of it, he turns around, he puts his big hand on my 10-inch tom and goes, I like the way you tune your drums. He could have said, but by the way, you sound awful. But he didn't, thankfully. Or he could have said, you sound great. But no, I like the way you tune your drums. That was it. And the rest of the day was just like, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And we finished and he went back to LA. You know, it's really nice to meet you. And we got on straight away. And so that was 78. There was a keyboard player issue. And we had two keyboard players, one to play Jeff's tunes, Max Middleton, one to play Stanley's tunes, Mike Garson. It just did not work.
Yeah.
And we were in production rehearsals at the Rainbow Theatre with not much time to go. And I walk into a dressing room where we had, and both Jeff and Ernest are talking. And I couldn't help but overhear, where are we going to get a fucking keyboard player now? Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, and I kind of went, excuse me. And they kind of turned around, yeah. I know a keyboard player who will nail this. Really? Absolutely. So, but how's he going to learn this? Trust me, you'll love him. And he said, well, can you call him? I said, yep. I picked up the phone right there, and it was, you know, and I called Tony, and he picked up the phone. Yeah. I said, hey, Tone, Simon. He said, oh, hello, how are you doing? I said, yeah, cool. Hey, fancy coming to Japan? When? And who with? I said, well, there's a small band that I put together, Jeff Beck, Stanley Clark, myself, and you. And he went, let me look at the diary. And he, this is so Tony, right? Yeah, I've got a classical concert performance at the Yardbury or whatever it is, Queen Elizabeth Hall on the 17th, and I've got a jazz gig with Cleo Lane on the 14th. I said, Tony, what are you thinking? And he said, oh, all right then. It was lovely. So Stanley had to fly back again from LA to just play with Tony and me.
Wow.
And loved him instantly. Tony had got all the songs down. Jeff was like, oh man, you know, and that was it. And Tony became, you know, Jeff's kind of main songwriter for many years, you know. So
wow, quite a coincidence.
Yeah. But then, so anyway, blah, blah, blah. Going up to there and back, what I realized was Jeff needs music. That's what he does. And I think Tony and I would be well placed to write some. So I said to Tony, we need to get together and write songs. And we did. That's exactly what we did. And then we go down to Jeff's, give him a cassette, and go take a listen to this. And he goes, oh yeah, I like this. And you know, we did a demo. I still have the demo as well. Yeah, anyway, that's a long story. I still have the demo of it, and it's you know, he puts it in the cassette machine, he listens. Oh, this is great, you know, and that's how we came up with There and Back.
Wow, so beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Such a nice album. I mean, it's just the tunes, everything. I love that band.
Well,
it was like,
it was, you see, that's what how I envisaged jazz rock to go.
Yeah.
More on the rock side. That's why I call it instrumental rock. It's instrumental. It should be more harmonically involved. You know, this is not, I mean, what Joe Satriani does, I mean, Sat's brilliant. It's lovely, but his is much more mainstream.
Yeah, it's very bluesy rock. Yeah.
Yeah, and very solid, consistent grooves, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas this is much more, you know, because Jeff loved harmony. He loved jazz chords.
Yeah.
So that was to me the perfect mixture of rock sensibility with jazz harmony. And I think that's why Tony and I had a great, we were, really great writing team. I mean, he did most of the heavy lifting, with all the chords and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
what am I going to do, but I kind of came up with a concept, a lot of the melodies and the kind of the form, the approach, we were jamming, we were playing a shuffle and I started playing in 7 across the 4. And then Jeff joined me. He said, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah.
Right? I said to Tony, "That's our next tune." And that's where Space Boogie came.
Boogie, yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's great. Yeah. And
Amazing.
so I carried that on really into my solo stuff.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you, because it has the same feel. I mean,
it's strong
more
melody,
complex, but
guitar-based melody, guitar-based melody, but a little more jazzy, a little more advanced, a little bit more complex. Just more fun, really.
Yeah. Did you ever play with Alan Holdsworth? Speaking of British guitarists.
We never played together live.
Really?
We played on a record together. Yeah, I was producing Derek Sherinian's one of Derek Sherinian's solo records, and Alan played on a couple of tracks.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
no, maybe he only played on one track. Yeah. So we did play together on a record, but I knew him. I mean, we used to bump into each other, baked potato and stuff.
Yeah.
But we never got to play. I think he probably thought I was just too rock based. I don't know. Yeah, he never asked me to play, so I don't know. Yeah.
No, because he chose like Chad Wackerman and these guys. It
Yeah.
would be so interesting to hear you sound wise, because this popped in my mind now as a guitar player.
Yeah. No, I would have loved to actually. It would have been great, but somehow it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Simon, just to end this, not to take more of your time, like what's still on the schedule for you for this year? You said you're not going with your own band to the road, but like still, what are the projects? And
right now I'm producing Darwin. We just released 5 Steps on the Sun, which is I don't know if you've heard it. Have you heard that record?
No, not yet. No.
Ooh, you need to listen to that record.
I'll write it down.
Yeah. Darwin, Darwin, 5 Steps on the Sun. And the players on it are Greg Howe is the lead guitarist. Jesse Siebenberg does all the acoustics and extra stuff. Matt Bissonette is the singer. Mahini Day is the bass player.
Really? Oh man, beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty serious. And Darwin is the guitar player and composer. And we all so the composing trio is Darwin, myself, and Matt Bissonette.
Wow, beautiful.
Just a triumvirate. So we write all the songs. And I'm producing the record, I'm engineering it, and I'm mixing it. So I have half an album to mix, another album to start doing overdubs and send them out to people like Greg and Jesse and Matt. I've got to do all the vocals with Matt, record those, and I've got to go actually the next trip. So I'll be going over to Europe to do rhythm guitars with Darwin, electric rhythm, So it's a slow process, but we've actually got this is 3 albums that we've done. One is just released, and it's on vinyl and CD. One is in the making, just needs to be mixed. Half of it's mixed, and one in the beginning stages. But we've already recorded the backing tracks.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's my main project really for the rest of the year. But I also have a lot of other sessions to do. And maybe doing something towards the end of the year with an Italian artist. So, but can't say anything about it yet.
For sure. Yeah. It's so funny when you started mentioning this mixing, and you became like a child in a sandbox or something, like like really like this. Oh man, you really must love this, because
you know what, I do. I've been doing it a very long time. Not as long as I've been playing drums, but nearly 40 something years, My first professional engineering job was in 1983 with Mike Oldfield. And it was his fault. He fired the engineer and he said, "You're engineering."
Wow.
Oh.
What was your experience with engineering when he asked you that?
Not a lot.
Just playing with great musicians. Well, doing the studio sessions, right?
Okay. I say not a lot. But remember, I've been doing rock and roll sessions since 1974.
Yeah.
So I've been watching people very closely. I understood how a studio works. I know the wiring. I've been stuck, I grew up with two tape machines, my mom's tape machines. I even built her a toggle switch patch bay because she got fed up of using cables. So I devised one where you just switch toggles and they make the connection.
Yeah. Wow.
And I used to go from tape machine to tape machine, doing overdubs and recording drums in stereo. So I was very, very interested, and I was dragged all around London studios by my dad in the 60s. So to me, to sit in the studio with a few microphones and a red light was normal.
Yeah.
And then so by the time we got to the 80s, I'd already started producing a little bit, but always with an engineer. But I kind of, so I saw people doing all sorts of things in the studio. So I was aware, how do you get backwards echo, on a piano? How do you get a long note, reversed piano note, all that kind of stuff. Editing. I just watched people editing. How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you make a tape loop? How do you fly it in? So it was kind of a natural progression. And Mike, we'd already done the drum tracks. He saw how I was working and how comfortable I was in that environment. He just said he wanted a musician to be engineering, not an engineer. See what I mean? So that's why he did it. And he taught me pretty much everything I know. He was amazing. He's an amazing engineer. So I started learning about, deeper recording techniques and how to operate a large format Neve console, 8108, NECAM automation, an ATR 124 tape machine, and outboard gear and Fairlight and, all this kind of stuff. And that was it. And then, of course, I got my own studio in 1986, which was out in the country. So I had to learn how to look after the gear. So I learned how to align a machine, how to degauss it. I didn't do all the wiring in that studio, but once it was wired up, and studios always need updates. That's when I started, I got soldering iron, I got all the equipment and started making cables. And
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And then adding stuff to the patch bay. There's a few little empty holes, pull that out, solder a few things to that, and then fixing stuff, because I was out in the country to wait for a maintenance guy to come out. It was like it was about an hour and a half outside of London, and expensive. So I just used to call him. I'd pull out the channel, I get the schematic out, and we tried to see if it's something simple that I could fix, like a dry solder joint on a resistor or something like that. And I was lucky. Sometimes it worked, a dab of solder there. Well, let's see if that does it, pop it back in and whoa, it works. Didn't always.
back in the days, yeah.
But but I was curious enough to get a pretty good mechanical electrical understanding of how a studio works. Well, once an oscilloscope comes into it, forget it. I'm not an electrical engineer, so that's the limit. Resistor colors. Okay, I'll leave. Too
still
much.
Amazing, man. Yeah. Nowadays it's easier. Yeah, digital.
Yeah, I loved it. So 1983 to now, where are we now? 2024, so
41 years. Wow.
Yeah. So, and I've recorded all sorts of instruments, string sections, brass sections, lots of vocalists.
Yeah.
I engineered the last Toto album that I played on, Falling in Between.
Oh, really? I didn't know that you engineered it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Big, yeah.
Dave wanted me to mix it. I said, no, I'm not mixing this album, not with you lot. Because I want to be, I'm a producer with the band, but I was engineering all the tracks. But mixing is a whole different thing, and I needed to get away from it so I could be, so I could say critical things about it, and not be the person that has to answer to the critical things all the time. I think it's just healthier in a band, So we got Steve to mix it. I mean, frankly, I was out with Steve most of the time anyway, but he was the mix engineer, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was. Otherwise, I would have had a nervous breakdown or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
but I love it. I love if somebody asks what I do, sometimes I actually say I make records.
Yeah, which is true.
It is
That's
true.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I love it from the beginning to the end, from the start of the writing the music, putting the sessions together, booking the musicians, mixing, overdubs, and then, mastering, the cover, manufacturing. I mean, it's and I love the whole process, and that's why I still believe in the record, the vinyl, the CD.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't, I'm too old to think of it any other way.
No, it's so beautiful. I mean, hearing this from you, I've done like 600 albums, or I don't know how much, it's probably, I don't know if
What
you
about
ever
there
counted,
somewhere?
but yeah, but it's a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah,
so it's like,
yeah.
it's nice to see this when you talk about this. You have this,
Thank you. Yeah,
like my
no,
daughter who plays in a sandbox. It's like,
I love it.
like, it's like,
Yeah, 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 I love it.
beautiful.
I did a recording class yesterday in a studio. I'd never been to the studio before, but it was actually really nice. Small studio, but really, really nice. Had an SSL, one of the new SSL
Mm.
desks. I mean, beautiful equipment. And I had about 12 drummers who wanted to learn a little bit more about how to record their kit. And I took them through like the history of recording, starting with, mono. And I put one STC 4038, which is Coles. They call it Coles now, which is what the BBC, well, they designed the mic anyway. STC manufactured it. And that was one of the first mics I ever saw in the BBC. I went, wow, look at that thing. It does look like an iron. And it's a ribbon mic, one over the drum kit, one over the piano. They used
Yeah,
to
that's
use
it. Yeah, yeah,
horns, very, very simple. And so I put one mic over the top, one mic on the bass drum, a long way away, because at Abbey Road, you were not supposed to put a microphone closer than 2 feet from the instrument, because it's a ribbon mic, But yeah, I mean, that's how it was, and demonstrated a mono sounding drum kit. And people went, wow, that sounds great. I said, well,
yeah,
yeah, those records were amazing, And then it went through, stereo, and then we put two mics up, like Glyn Johns type, various different places actually. And then we did multi-miking, and it was great, really fun, really fun. Yeah.
it's nice that they get to see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
jazz drums. It's basically two overheads, bass and snare. That's it, and
All my first sessions in
so,
the early 70s, I get
yeah,
there. Of course, I only had a small kit, 4-piece kit, was left, right, snare, kick. And I remember when they
yeah,
started adding a hi-hat symbol, a hi-hat microphone.
yeah.
Didn't have tom-tom mics in those days.
No, and it sounded great.
Alan
Everything.
Parsons still doesn't use them. Alan Parsons puts 3 KM64s over the top of the kit, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if the drummer is balanced, he'll know how to play, right?
Well,
I mean, that's the another thing, right? So
we dealt with we've dealt with that a lot, actually. Yeah.
yeah,
Because,
so
well, like any, if the musician knows how to get a good sound out of his instrument and is a good player, it makes the engineer's life easy.
yeah,
Just put a microphone up, point it in the right direction, listen to what's coming out of the amplifier, or the speaker cab from the guitar or the bass, or the Rhodes or whatever. Put the mic in the right place, not too close, and put the fader up and set your gain.
that's it. Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's the easy part of engineering. The hard part is when somebody plugs into a guitar amp and there's this most horrendous sound coming out of the speakers. And I've got 2 microphones. I've got
yeah,
so that's when you have to work.
yeah,
There
exactly.
you go.
Cool. Sir, thank you so much for sharing
Pleasure.
some of these thoughts, man. If
Pleasure.
you're going to be in Europe, drop me a line. If you're close to Slovenia, we live in a nice wine region, so.
I mean, I will be coming to Switzerland, but I'll be just going straight to Zurich and working there, and then straight out again.
If you're ever near Austria or something, let me know. We can get together.
Don't have any actual big plans yet, but yeah, I'll let you know if I'm anywhere near.
And if you need for the booking in Slovenia a contact or something, let me also know. I know many people. I've been booking concerts for 20 years for my own group, so
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
if you'll have like
I
a
will
date.
bear,
The fees
I
are
will
not
bear
amazing
that.
here, but still,
Yeah.
if you have like a off date kind of thing in Austria, then
Okay.
it's easy. So.
Okay. You know what? I might put Patrizio, who is my
Oh yeah,
uh,
Chiozza from
yeah,
MHE.
from
Yeah,
Italy.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah,
You do know him.
I mean not personally, but I know who he is.
Right, you know who he is.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I'll put him in touch with you.
Yeah. If when he does the booking, he just
Yeah.
should send me an
Okay.
email. If he
All
has
right.
like an off date or something, like let's say Northern Italy
Right.
or Austria, then
Okay.
Ljubljana and Maribor are quite okay options. So
Okay, great. All right. I'll pass that on to him. Yeah.
sure, gladly.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed
thank
it.
you too. Thank you too.
All right.
Stay,
Finally,
stay
I
soon.
didn't forget about it.
Yeah,
I
we
missed
did it. We did it.
Sorry
I
about
forgot to send you the Zoom yesterday, so
that.
I
Oh,
thought
it's okay. That's okay.
cool.
All
Thanks
right,
so
man.
much. Okay,
Take
Simon.
care.
Bye.
Dr. Jazz.